This is the Bartholomew Town Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Bartholomew Town Podcast. It's Bill Bartholomew. Hopefully you enjoyed this weekend and had some time off and some time to reflect on things and just kind of get ready here as we move into two phases. One, summer proper, as I call it here in Rhode Island, I guess, right? 4th of July through Labor Day. But then also as we inch towards political season at its maximum capacity, right? We are definitely heading there, and that's where our focus, as you may have been able to tell for regular listeners anyway, that's really where we're going to be focusing on as we move forward these next several months, and it's been ramping up and up and up, and here we are. But today I wanted to have Providence Councilman John Goncalves on to discuss the many development projects that are taking place in his ward downtown and on the I-195 land. Obviously, the Superman building comes to mind, the things that are taking place in the jewelry district, the number of construction projects there, whether it be apartments or the forthcoming Trader Joe's, whatever it is. This is a big deal, and there's a lot of consequences to this, and there's a lot of opportunity in all of these projects. And it's that theme that we've been discussing here on the show of the old Providence and the new Providence, and can they work together and forge something that is equitable and outstanding. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we're all, at least some of us who are paying attention, I should say, are really concerned. Like, wow, these projects are cool on a certain level, but what does it really do for the city as a whole? You know what I mean? If you build the Superman building out or refurbish the Superman building, and it's a place where, you got to be a zillionaire, some kind of trust fund kid, or, working some tech job or something like that, and you're coming from out of state to live there, well, what does that really do for all of us? At the same time, it does a lot for us to have a robust, active, and economically engaged downtown. There's no question about that. So it's this weird, I don't even know if weird is the right word, but it's this balance. It's this discussion that we have to have concurrently with any celebrations of ribbon cuttings or anything like that. We have to look at the big picture. So that's why always a pleasure to have Councilman Goncalves on the show. He's very forthcoming, and we have some candid discussions about this, and he offers his insight into it. If you have questions for political candidates as they begin to appear, either their first, second, or third go-around this election season, send me an email, bill@ripodcast.com. I'll pose them to those candidates, and we'll read your emails aloud here on the program. And remember to follow me on Twitter @BillBartholomew, same over on Instagram @BillBartholomew. And trying to build out that YouTube infrastructure as well, which I've basically ignored. But I see some opportunities to do some stuff there that we're not necessarily doing on the podcast, on the radio, on TV, or on the other socials. So I'm going to start to develop that as well. Just search for me on YouTube if you're interested in that. Okay, let's get to it. Councilman John Goncalves here on Rhode Island's podcast of record, BTOWN. All right, so welcoming back to the program, the one and only John Goncalves, councilman in Providence. And look, this is an interesting time for you specifically because there's so much activity happening in your ward that is pivotal for the future of Providence. And I've been kind of on this theme for a while now, and it sort of borrows from Mayor Elorza, but of the old Providence and the new Providence. So we look at the Superman building project, it seems like the target audience, save for the 20% quote unquote affordable housing, is for people who may not even necessarily live in Rhode Island right now. And we're in a housing crisis, yet at the same time, the residual economic benefit that can spawn from such a project, that can spawn from what takes place on the 195 land with the development there, it allows for this new Providence to maybe serve the old Providence. Touch on that and why you've been a proponent of the development taking place downtown.
Sure. Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for having me on, Bill. As you know, I represent Fox Point, Wayland, College Hill, the jewelry district in downtown. It's a very busy ward. We're the economic engine of both the city and the state. And I really thank you for that question. So as it comes to downtown, downtown really exemplifies the potential of what this city can be. And I saw you a couple weeks ago, in fact, at PVD Fest. And I think we need to bring more and more of that to downtown. Look, I wrote an op-ed on this very issue entitled "Superman Will Breathe New Life into Downtown Providence." And the reason why I say that is because with COVID, we've seen a shift in commercial real estate. And rehabbing the iconic Superman building is a win for downtown. It's a win for the city of Providence, and it's a win for the state. It's going to result in about 1,600 direct construction jobs right here in the city, 285 residential units. And to your point, 20% of which will be designated to the state's definition of affordable housing, which equates to about 57 units. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that 20% of those jobs are going to be WMBE. And I really want to commend Commerce Secretary Stephen Pryor on behalf of the McKee administration, who helped lead those negotiations. Look, this is an iconic landmark that once completed is going to breathe new life into downtown. The alternative is that it's vacant for another 9 years, and we just can't afford to have that. I think the commitment to, again, 20% local minority and women-owned businesses in this project is critical. And these redevelopment plans are really going to stimulate our local economy. They're going to reinvigorate our downtown Providence and further build up this very growing and vibrant residential and commercial neighborhood. So the long-term returns will be enormous for the city, and it's certainly going to be a step up from a seemingly frail downtown that hasn't quite realized its potential.
Critics of the project are concerned that the taxpayer will be on the hook for potentially, if this thing goes belly up. We certainly see cost overruns right now, inflation, supply chain issues. Much of the dollar amounts that are noted in this project are somewhat projected. Are you concerned about burdening taxpayers in a time where we're already seeing rapid inflation, cost of living increases, and wage stagnation across the board?
Oh, absolutely. And I will say unequivocally that the taxpayer comes first in this project. I do want to say that the city's skin in the game is very minimal, and there are some important guardrails in this proposal that will protect city taxpayers. So when we look at the rate sheet, all in all, the city's skin in the game is roughly around 2.2% of this project. $42 million of this project is going to be private equity that's raised by the developer. There's a lot of state subsidies involved. And I think we need to scrutinize the terms of the tax stabilization agreement, no question. I think we need to make sure that the developer is accountable to the community and that ultimately the developer is accountable to the taxpayer. One of the things I've been on record about is demanding that the developer incorporate some kind of publicly accessible aspect to this project. And one of the things that I envision in particular is something like an observation deck, similar to the New York City's Top of the Rock into the building. And the reason why I say that is because given the subsidies, all city and state taxpayers, for that matter, should be entitled to enjoy the Superman building and its sweeping views of the city. And this will also, in my opinion, reduce the exclusivity effect. It would also accentuate the community benefit. It would provide everyone in both the city and the state and outside of the state with the true public amenity, all while generating traffic and tourism revenue, both for the city, state, and the developer in the process. So I think that would be an enormous win-win, and it would be something that makes this a little bit more palatable for the taxpayer. There are some other guardrails in place that I want to mention as well. So the city's skin in the game is $15 million. $10 million of that is a loan that it essentially isn't issued until the certificate of occupancy. So that ensures that the project is completed. And then I think another clause that I want to point people to, which I think a lot of people miss, is the fact that no more than 91 of these units is going to go to an institutional partner. Yes. And that was that was built into the agreements. And so, theoretically, you can get a large tax exempt, nonprofit or university to come in and basically take up all 285 of those units. So I think those are critical guardrails. I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And I look forward to hearing from the taxpayers of the city about how we need to hold these developers accountable and making sure that they're getting their fair end of the deal.
Clearly going to be and expand as a major economic development project and story for years to come here. Broadly speaking, let's talk about Providence. You mentioned PBD Fest and the vibrancy of that weekend, particularly on Saturday when it was just like completely overloaded with positive activity. No question about it. Sure. How do we turn downtown into or downtown, the jewelry district, whatever you want to call it, the 195 lane, the pedestrian bridge, that sector of the city? How do we turn that into a community hub for the entire city? Is transportation and transit sufficient right now? Are we at a point where that is an inviting space for everybody citywide to mingle, to network, to generate revenue, and to feel safe and supported by their city?
I think so, but I think we also have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of infill development that's coming online down by the jewelry district. If we look at the I-95 District Commission land, so we've got 62 units that are coming online with parcel 6 in the grocery store. We've got theoretically 194 units coming online with parcel 2. There's another 130 units. It's a mixed use development project on parcel 9 that's going to bring about 130 units, 38%, which is going to be workforce affordable housing. So there is going to be a lot of infill development. But I think one of the things that we need to be very cautious about is the impact of all of that infill development and how it ultimately aligns with the interests and needs of the neighborhood. So I've been pretty vocal on this issue. Obviously, the city of Providence has no control over what's built on state-owned land, and state lawmakers stripped the city of its zoning authority in 2019. But we've been steadfast advocates for our ward, and we've been encouraging the commission to make sure that the community has a seat at the table. And one of the things that I've been hammering home is the fact that we need to make sure that these projects happen with the community and not to the community. And I think ultimately that is going to result in better projects for the neighborhood. So, when we look at parcel 9, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. Penrose, they're an out-of-town developer. They came to this market. They were very responsive to the interests and needs of the neighborhood. They initially were proposing commercial real estate in their project. And we said, there's a huge need for childcare in the neighborhood. So, we essentially urged them to establish some relationships with some of the local childcare providers. We introduced them to several just all across the state. And sure enough, they've got an agreement with Children's Friend to bring 50 childcare seats to the neighborhood. So there's an opportunity to find wins in these projects. They just have to be in alignment with what the community is looking for. What we can't have is developers simply imposing their will on the community without having that robust feedback and that dialogue. And I think there's a range of opinions on this. I think there are people who would prefer that it just be green space. There are people who would prefer that there's nothing built there at all. And I think this goes back to sort of the new Providence and the old Providence. I mean, we've got a housing affordability issue in our city. If there's anywhere that could use a little bit more density, it's certainly that area. But what we don't want to see also, and I've been on record about this, is the vast corporatization of that area. I think we need to keep wicked in. I think that's got a funky, character-filled, asset to our community. We want to maintain the neighborhood vibrancy and the fabric. So we've got to have a really balanced approach there. I think people are concerned about the traffic issues. And so we're really on the ground, making sure that we listen to our community. We're relaying that feedback to our city and state partners, and we're really trying to get in there to make sure that the community's voice is being heard. One of my mantras has always been community first, and that's what we're always going to do. We're going to make sure that our community is at the table, has a seat at the table, and we're relaying the feedback to ensure that we've got a vibrant neighborhood and that it's growing in a way that is consistent with the interests and needs of the neighborhood.
There was a homeless camp bulldozed in your ward. There's concern about access to housing in your ward. People are worried about being priced out. On the homeless camp itself specifically, how should that be managed? Was that the right thing to do?
So what project are you referring to? Or
this was one there was a state organized removal. It was behind the Salvation Army. And just in general, I guess, there's folks who are arguing that we got to move the bus station just simply so that Kennedy Plaza doesn't have anyone who is, as they would describe it, undesirable. Do you think there's room for everybody downtown? I mean, obviously we need to take care of people who are vulnerable, but how do we manage that situation?
Absolutely. And I think, Providence is an inclusive city, and it needs to be an inclusive city. And I think when we think about the affordability crisis in our city, it's a real thing. I mean, there are people who are being priced out of their neighborhoods. And Fox Point, as a, nearly 30-year resident of the neighborhood, I've seen the changes over time where we're seeing universities essentially expanding their footprint. That has resulted in people essentially being priced out of the neighborhood and having to move to other areas, and we need to make sure that people aren't displaced from their homes. I think another issue that we were just dealing with recently is the current tax rates. So we've got our residential, we've got our commercial tax rates, and unfortunately the way that sometimes it plays out, especially with the reevaluations that just reoccurred, our city is becoming more and more unaffordable. So this is something that we really need to address, and we need to tackle it head on. With regards to homelessness, I can assure you that I've been a staunch advocate on this issue. With the ARPA funding that came down from the federal government, the city of Providence received over $166 million in COVID relief dollars. We advocated for that $29 million line item that's going to directly be supporting homelessness and affordable housing in the city. And as far as the cleanup that you're referring to, or I'm not exactly sure where it is that you're referring to, but I think that we need to provide people with the resources and services that they need. And so our approach always will be to make sure that we're offering people, shelters, and we're trying to provide these services, and we're going down and trying to help these people get the support that they need. We don't need to criminalize homelessness. We need to make sure that we're finding resources and opportunities to get unhoused folks the things that they need, because ultimately, when people are in those situations, it sometimes they're just down and out and out on their luck. And, again, we're living in a housing crisis in Providence, and we need to build more affordable, housing, rapid rehousing. We need permanent supportive housing opportunities and solutions to get people back on their feet with a stable roof over their heads. And we need to do that in a way that's humanizing. And we also need to do that in a way that supports those folks and gets them the resources that they need to get back on their feet.
John Goncalves, he's a Providence City Councilor. Thanks as always for joining us.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Support the independent journalism, entertainment, opinion, and analysis that Bartholomew Town provides for as little as $3 per month. Simply head to patreon.com/BartholomewTown or go ahead and click the support link wherever you're listening right now.
At HealthSource RI for Employers, we provide access to health insurance to more than 1,100 local businesses and nonprofits, and 96% of them renew through us every year. Maybe it's our choice of 19 different health plans, our 10 years of customizing solutions, or our one local team of dedicated experts helping employers find quality health insurance. See how our numbers stack up for you. Learn more at healthsourceri.com/employers.